What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Jordan Slover of NeonAmbition.com. And Jordan, I always like to mention other episodes people should check out before I formally introduce you. And since this is part of the agency series, I had Jason Swank on. He was a great guest. He actually talked about building up his agency to over 8 figures and selling it, and then how they're acquiring agencies now. Todd Taskey also has a Second Bite podcast where he talks about how he matches private equity with an agency and they sell and sometimes get more on the second bite than they did on the first. I also want to give a shout out to Alex Galouse. Jordan and I were talking before we hit record on B2B SaaS is a difficult market in a lot of respects. And Alex has a podcast, The Revenue Engine, but he helps B2B SaaS companies with their paid ads, essentially. And he only specializes in that because it's kind of a tough industry as far as that goes. But this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're actually an easy button for a company to launch and run their podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution. And, Jordan, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and profile and share what they're working on and their expertise. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com. Happy to answer anything you throw our way. And I'm excited. We have Jordan Slover. He got his start in online marketing working for Google in NYC and London on the Google Analytics team after a 4-year stint in an agency in Australia, which is one of my goals to visit. So I'm jealous. Jordan, he moved to Austin and founded Neon Ambition, which is an online marketing agency focused on helping companies in some of the most competitive industries grow online. And when I was reading, some of the niches that you help with, Jordan, I was like, why not just make it easier on yourself? Why go after competitive niches? But I guess you like a challenge. And Jordan's company actually made the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies. And you can check them out at neonambition.com. And Jordan, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
So why competitive niches? Why?
Yeah, it's not what I set out to do from day one. I'll say that. But it almost is in the name a little bit. I'm ambitious. I love working with ambitious companies. And that's really where the name for the business came. I know that wasn't your question, but I was going to name it Ambition Online Marketing, and then I realized how boring that was, and so decided to throw neon in front of Ambition to kind of jazz it up, and that's how we got the name. And just over the years, we started working with personal injury attorneys, some of the highest, CPCs out there, really cutthroat industry, and started having some success and really liking working in that vertical. We got some clients in insurance, going up against Geico and the Hartford, and the big boys of.
They spend a lot of money too, right?
They do, yeah. And we started working with insurance company that was pretty new to the market, and that was the competition, and we just said, giddy up, let's do it. And I've built a team I'm really proud of, and they're all just as competitive as I am. And when we see an SEO client that has keywords that SEMrush say are very hard or very difficult, those are the ones that we get excited about and go after. And we've had a lot of success in those industries. So, we'll take we'll take the easy ones too. Don't get me wrong, but we don't shy away from the difficult stuff either.
Talk a little bit. I know give a brief intro, but add some color. Talk about Neon Ambition and what you do there.
Sure. So we are a lead gen focused agency. We're really trying to get the phone to ring or people to fill out the form, and have worked in a wide variety of industries over the years. But in many ways are like a lot of other online marketing agencies. Just doing Google ads, social media ads, SEO, web design, content marketing. We're a HubSpot partner as well. So yeah, we kind of focused on lead gen and just like helping our clients grow. I was pumped to make the 5,000 list, but I'm even more excited when our customers make it. So
love it. I want to talk, you didn't start your own agency out of the gate. You actually worked for an agency for almost 4 years. I'd love to hear, what did you learn from that? And that was in Australia.
Yeah. So after I left Google, traveled a bit and ran out of money in Australia. And so I got a job working for a web design agency and was on the sales team selling websites, and pretty quickly kind of came to the realization, it's great that we're helping these companies with their website, but what are they going to do once we launch it? We need to kind of help them market their website. And my boss said, can you do that? And I said, well, I certainly can try. And started the online marketing division for the agency I was working at. And even though I worked at Google, I was on the Google Analytics team. So it's not like I was learning about SEO and at Google, and I wasn't on the Google Ads team either. So, well, of course, I knew about Google Ads, but I wasn't on the ad side of the business there. So, really, the agency experience I had in Sydney was where I learned a lot about SEO and pay per click and paid social, and also where I learned, some of the dodgy things that happen in the industry. And it kind of really opened my eyes to, just how many bad online marketing agencies there are. And I'm not speaking about the one I was at. The one I was at was not one of these bad apples. But when I was speaking to prospective clients and they were telling me about the other quotes they were getting and hearing about guarantees or, untransparent pricing policies. I mean, I could go on and on about some of the dodgy things that I heard, and it just made me think like, wow, I feel bad for these people that are small, medium-sized business owners, not specialists in online marketing. And, some of these companies are trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And I just wanted to start an agency that was the opposite of that and do everything the right way for our clients. So, we still run into that even today. I wish I could say that I don't see that stuff anymore, but, when we take clients over from other agencies, I mean, this happened probably each of the past 3 months, where we took over a client from a previous agency, and instead of handing us over all of the WordPress files that we need to transfer their site over, they just dump us, some content and some design files and say, here you go, when they could have just easily given us that little bit extra information to make the transferring the website over easier. But they don't want to make it easy on anyone to leave. And it's just, I don't know why some agencies operate that way.
Talk about, you've seen things of what people should watch out for from a consumer perspective. You mentioned guarantees and some other things. What would be an example of something that you saw that you're thinking, how are they doing that?
Yeah. Well, to that website example, I mean, some of these companies, will build you a website, but you don't really own, the website. It's built on their proprietary CMS. So I kind of try to help educate people that, proprietary CMS is not WordPress. It's not something you can just take to any other firm easily. They're trying to kind of lock you into their universe there, and that's going to make it difficult for you in the end. Some other things that I see are, like I said, unclear pricing policies. We have one pretty large competitor who will just, say it's 20 grand a month, and that covers your SEO and your paid search. But what's their management fee? It's very unclear. And even their reporting, they'll brag about this beautiful dashboard, but you look at the dashboard and there's no CPC data, there's no total spend to Google data, and you don't actually own your Google Ads account. I mean, that's a big one that I actually tried to work with Google to get this policy reversed. When I was at Google, I was on the Google Analytics Partner Program, so I was dealing with Google Analytics partners. So then when I started an agency and joined the Google Ads Partner Program, I tried working my connections to say, hey, this policy that you have where if you pay your agency, if a client pays the agency 20 grand a month to manage their Google Ads campaign, and the agency is the one paying Google views the agency owner as the owner of the account because it's the agency paying the bills. And so if you leave that agency as the customer, you don't get access to your account and all that history. And, I just think that's an insane policy.
How do you like to structure it then?
Well, I think it's the client's ultimately paying that bill. It's their account. All of the information in there is about their business, and they're ultimately paying for it, right? So I the way we do it is we always, either set up a brand new account or take over someone's account and make our clients admin, and they own the account, and we're just, stewards of it. So I usually joke, like 17 years from now, when you sell the business and don't want to work with us anymore, you're not going to have to worry about ownership of the campaign. We see that with Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, where clients don't even have logins to their own analytics.
Is there a risk, Jordan, from the agency's standpoint of doing that if they're footing the bill? I mean, is there a possibility, I don't know if it happens, that the client, they have to bill the client for that money, but they're footing the bill up front for those people, right?
I mean, Google, so we have our clients put their own credit card down, and Google just bills them as the...
Yeah. I mean, not in your case, but in the other case, if an agency is running it through their account, they're footing the bill up front for that client, right?
Yeah, unless the client pays in advance,
Got it.
Yeah.
So I could see, I don't know if that's a risk from the agency perspective, just to run it that way if the client doesn't pay the bill, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, if we had that business model, which we don't, I would certainly make clients pay up front before we footed the bill. But we don't do it that way.
I want to talk, and this is a conversation with a lot of agencies. So from the Sydney agency, some of the things you learned as far as, you brought this new division. Was there anything on the sales side? Because that was kind of your one of your roles there is the sales. What works, and what was kind of a methodology that you use and you have your team use that works with kind of the sales process?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if this is related or not, but maybe it is. I haven't really thought about it. But both my parents were teachers. My mom was a second grade teacher for 35 years, and my dad was a high school art teacher. This is actually a self-portrait he did when he was like about 30. he painted himself as a matador, which I find hilarious. He was not a matador. But I don't know if that's part of it, but I have always tried to help our prospective clients understand that while SEO is complicated and Google Ads have a lot of moving pieces, that these are smart business people that have started a business, and if they want to understand how it works, all they need to do is give me time. So I spend a lot of time in the sales process just trying to educate, because I want people to understand what we're doing and why, and have a pretty good understanding of how it all works.
What are some common mistakes that you see people making when you're educating them that they make with the SEO component?
Well, not doing enough research on the company that they're considering going with, I think is a big one. This is a pretty big decision for most businesses. You're usually hiring an agency, not thinking it's going to be a short-term solution, right? You're hoping that you make the right choice and that this is going to be the agency that's going to help you grow for years to come. And I see a lot of people kind of rushing through the process and not doing their due diligence. I've had prospects who will tell me who we're up against. Hey, you're in the final two. You've got to present to the boss, and the other agency is going to present to the boss. And I'll always try to find out who we're up against. Don't always do that, but if I can, the last 2 times that I found out who we're up against, I look them up on LinkedIn, just because I haven't heard of them. You can't roll a tennis ball down the street without rolling past 4 online marketing agencies. So there's it's impossible to keep track of all of them. So I look them up on LinkedIn, and the last one that I looked up was a firm based out of Atlanta, and that's how he described them to me. I was like, I've never heard of them. Where are they based? He's like, Atlanta. I'm like, okay. I look them up, and they're on LinkedIn. And yes, one guy is in Atlanta, and the other 3 people at the agency, there was only 4 people at the entire agency, were in Jakarta and Bangladesh, which is, fine if that's what you, are looking for. But they didn't know that. They thought they were based out of Atlanta, and they thought they were a much bigger firm because their website tried to portray them as a big agency. And I was just like, hey, is this who you're talking about? Because, and he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of that. The time before that, I looked up, and we have a big SEO team, and SEO director with 15 years of experience, and another SEO with 20, and another one with 15. We got a really experienced SEO team here. And I looked up who we were up against, and the only person listed at this other company on the SEO team was a mechanic 2 years ago, which again, like totally, wonderful profession. But, my people have been doing SEO for 15 years. Like, do you think this person who's been doing it for 2 years is gonna, get you the same results? Only being the only person at the whole company, that does SEO for all of their clients. So I just think you got to dig deeper. I also interview a ton of SEOs and a ton of account managers because we're growing and we're constantly looking for better talent. And I interview account managers who have 30, 40 accounts assigned to them, that's like impossible, I think, to properly service that many accounts. I've interviewed SEOs who had 120 accounts that they worked on a month. There's 187 working hours in a month. If all you do is SEO every day, 8 hours a day, that's 1.5 hours per client a month. And we all know you can't do that. You have meetings, and so I think clients really should spend more time vetting the agencies that they're going to hire.
What do you look for? You're growing. What do you look for in an account manager?
Good Good question. Someone who's whip smart, you know, we generally are looking for someone who has at least 5 years of agency experience already. You know, it's one of the things I'm realizing about how I've built the agency that's different from a lot of agencies is I've always tried to hire the most talented people I could afford and most experienced people. It's not the way a lot of agencies do it. In fact, I'm part of a peer group. I'll give a shout out to agencymanagementinstitute.com, run by a guy named Drew, who is
I've had Drew on the
wonderful.
podcast.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Highly recommend you sign up for his newsletter at the very least. But I'm part of one of his peer groups, and he'll tell you that the way most agencies make money is have a few senior people and a lot of junior woodchucks. Was his words, and I raised my hand and said, Drew, I don't have any junior woodchucks. And so, as we get bigger, we, start to realize the need for more junior people. You don't need senior people doing everything. But even so, I try to kind of limit that to people that have still had, 5 years of experience. And I think I lost track of your question, to be honest.
No, I was like, what do you look for in account managers?
Oh yeah, account managers. Yeah. Well, someone that's been an account manager before, is required. Someone who has a lot of experience in a digital agency specifically. I don't want to have to teach them about Google Ads or SEO. Of course, they'll learn more coming here, but I like someone that has that experience. But personality is important in the role. They're managing the relationship. They need to be super organized, and just someone that you want to work with every day,
How do you, when you're, through the hiring process, how are you, it's tough sometimes. People sometimes put their best foot forward. What do you have in the process to kind of decide, is this person organized? You like their personality? I mean, maybe you do off the bat. I don't know. The interview process is a little bit a microcosm of, is it real or not?
Yeah.
What does the hiring process look like?
Yeah, we certainly have, had that happen in the past, and it can be frustrating when you try to put people through their paces and then, they start and maybe aren't exactly who they said they were. I halfway anticipated you might ask about a book that I like reading, so I kept this handy. Have you heard of this book?
Yeah.
By Jeff Smart and Randy Street. I keep this on my desk at all times.
If you're just listening, but if you're watching the video, he held up the book Who. And I actually had the CEO of Top Grading on my podcast, and I believe that's his son who wrote that, and the dad wrote Top Grading.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although I'm not positive, but I'll take your word for it.
CEO of Chris Mersaw runs Top Grading, but the book is Top Grading, Hiring A Players, and I think his son wrote Who, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. And it's got sample interview questions and top grading interview questions and how to check references, and we try to follow that as closely as we can. We're not perfect, but it's kind of, I guess, what I was saying with prospects need to do more due diligence on their agencies. They recommend asking for 7 or 8 references, and the idea is, everyone can kind of give you 2-3 people that like you, and can speak favorably of you, but give me 8, do we ask for 8 references from everyone? No, to be honest, but I do try to ask for as many as they'll give me and actually call them and talk to them. And, there's a very specific set of questions that you ask and the way that you ask them to get people to open up. And, we do our best because it's obviously the number one biggest challenge of running an agency is having really talented people to do the work.
Jordan, is there, I know there's a lot of questions and pieces of the process, and if you don't remember, that's fine. Is there one question that sticks out that you remember reading from the book, or that you're like, this one's especially important in that I ask in the process?
Well, there's one reference question, since we were talking about references, that I think is particularly interesting, and I might not be explaining it the best because I wasn't prepared for this. But one of the questions is, what were the person's biggest areas for improvement back then? And the book goes on to explain that saying back then really psychologically opens people up to feeling okay to talk about something someone might not have been good at. So I usually will ask it, I'll even go a little deeper and say, obviously it's been a few years since you worked with them, or however long it's been since they've worked with them. It usually has been a couple of years at least, and so, maybe they've improved on this since then, but, back then, was there anything that they can improve on? And it seems to work. People really do kind of open up and latch on to that. Yeah, well, they've gotten better at this. I can't say for certain, but back then, let me tell you this and that, so that question I always really like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Jordan, I know a lot of the agencies that I talk to really think a lot about the topic of niching down, right? Mm-hmm. Should I niche down? How much do I niche down? If I niche down, will I turn away this segment that I already serve a lot of? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, because you serve a number of industries, right? You serve, like you said, PI attorneys. You mentioned the insurance. The insurance genre. I know that you help home builders. How do you think about the topic of niching down for an agency?
Yeah, so it's really a tricky one for me because we didn't start off niche down, although I did make the decision to specialize in lead gen and not try to be, all things to all people and have e-commerce and lead gen. So in a way, we had a small niche of lead gen. It's not that niche, but that enabled us to focus from day one on that. And then as we got more and more personal injury clients and had more and more success there, and like that industry, and like not everyone has a great opinion of personal injury lawyers, but I certainly do, because the stories we hear of people that they help that have gone through really traumatic things, and how they're able to help them and change their lives really gives a lot of meaning to the work that we do for them. So we certainly have worked with a lot of personal injury lawyers, and do I change Neon Ambition to be 100% personal injury? Do I not? It's a constant question going on in the back of my mind, and we haven't made that decision to do that yet, because we do have a lot of success in other industries, and it keeps it different for the people working on it. They're not working on the same thing every time. We get to try new things. So I don't know that I have the answer, Jeremy, but I do see I do have some other agencies that I track that have niched into a couple niches, right? They do pest control, and then they've got another website that's whatever, dental practices. And so there's obviously
people have handled it in different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for niching. You really get to know the industry, and get really good and efficient at it. And so I understand why people do it. We're kind of trying to niche and also service other good clients. It's enabled us to turn away business that's far from what we're trying to accomplish. But like I said, that's kind of why we're talking about highly competitive industries, because we don't want to turn away a good client in a really competitive industry. That's going to be a fun project for us.
Let's talk about some examples, but I like how you put it. One thing is looking at niching into a specific service. So you're talking lead gen. And the other is also a way to think about niching is in industry, right? And even broad, like super competitive industries. And under that, for you, that falls certain things like PI attorneys or insurance companies and things like that. So let's talk about an example so I can understand a little bit about what your company does. There's a PI attorney that you helped out of Arizona. And what were some of the things you did with them?
Yeah, so this attorney came to us like a lot of people do, really have been burned in the past. I sometimes kind of half joke that my role at Neon Ambition is like SEO therapist. Sometimes the first 5-10 minutes of a call with a prospect is just hearing about how they can't believe they're talking to another SEO company. They've been burned so many times in the past, and they're really not sure if it's going to work, but they see it work for other people. They don't know why it's not working for them. And 5-10 minutes go by, and I've only just been listening. Yes, I understand. I understand. We've all been burned before, but we have to learn to love again.
Right.
So, remind me of your question, Jeremy.
No, I was just saying the PA attorney in Arizona.
Oh yes,
and you were saying how.
Sorry, yeah. So he was like that, and had been burned a lot of times, and so I just we were able to, over a very long sales process, that we kind of alluded to earlier, really do a lot of competitive industry and competitive research, and examine his site and audit his Google Ads campaign, and try to set realistic expectations with them as to what we can do for him. It's a huge part of my job here as well, is just realistic expectation setting. Something that I think people have to watch out for in the industry. I always try to help people understand I'm the owner of the agency, and so setting realistic expectations is huge for me. I'm not here to just like collect my commission check and don't care what happens in 6 months. It's my name on the line in 6 months, whether you're going to keep going with us or not. So was able to break through, and we took over his ad campaign and took over his SEO, and he just had a record-breaking year and averaging over a case a day, which for his size firm was his goal. So
what was the difference there, Jordan? So someone who's worked with 3 other whatever number of firms, and now you come in, and the person has not had success before, right? So what was the difference?
Well, it's my team. It's anytime you're hiring an agency, you're hiring people, and you're paying for their time and expertise. So the thing about SEO, and I think that's hard for potential clients to choose the right SEO company, and I'm very aware of, is that we all sound the same. We all say we're going to do technical audit, and then we're going to do keyword research, and then we're going to write content for you, and then we're going to build backlinks for you. And I know the words coming out of my mouth, they've already heard it 3-4 times, and the reality is, this is the way the algorithm works, and this is what you have to do to be successful. But the devil's in the details. How good are your copywriters? How much content are you going to be producing each month? Does the agency have an editor on staff? This is a good question. It's amazing how many competitors I look up who don't have an editor on their website or on LinkedIn, and they just expect the client to edit the content. Or do they even have copywriters? Some agencies make their SEOs or account managers write copy, right? So these are the questions that I try to help people understand as they're evaluating us, and often getting 3-4 other quotes. These are some of the questions that an agency is not going to just, tell you we don't have an editor on staff, or our SEOs write content. They're just going to tell you they write content. Um, a lot of SEO companies talk about building backlinks, but they don't talk about how quality are those backlinks going to be. And when I get into a situation where we've made, the final two, and people are trying to compare apples to apples, they say, have you asked them how many backlinks they're going to be building for you each month, and have you asked about what the quality of those backlinks will be? And they say, oh, no, it just says here, and they'll read from the proposal, monthly outreach. It's like, okay, well, you might want to ask, how much monthly outreach, and what kind of expectations are they setting, right? And then they come back and they're like, yeah, they said they're going to build DR 20 backlinks for us. And I'm like, that is not going to help you, and your industry is too competitive. Like, we average DR 50 backlinks from many of our clients in these really competitive spaces, because that's what you're going to need to move the needle, right? So, yeah, I literally do feel for a lot of people I speak to, because they're busy trying to be a lawyer or be a home builder, and they don't have time to learn all of this. But I try to help them understand, look, I've been doing this for like 14 years now. These are the details that you have to look for and watch out for when choosing who you work with. And it's the devil is in the details there, in terms of whether it's going to work or not.
Jordan, talk about expectations for a second. I think in SEO too, is it a tough conversation? Because let's say someone else is setting false expectations, okay? And you have to go in and be like, hey, this may take 6 months or a year of building this because it's super competitive, right?
Yeah.
What are expectations like in the PI world that, we've all heard, you want to under promise, over deliver, whatever the saying is, but what is a realistic expectation that people should have?
Yeah. I always joke and tell people my favorite part of selling SEO is telling them that there will not be ROI for the first 6 months. Now, it's not always the case. It's not always the case. And to answer your question, it's very case by case, right? The thing about SEO is that every website is starting in a different position, right? Did you just launch the website yesterday? Has it been around for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? How much content do you have versus the competition? How many backlinks and quality of backlink profile do you have versus the competition? So every single person I talk to, I have to do all of this research and competitive research to figure out where they are and where the competition is, and then figure out how to close that gap. And then, of course, a lot of it comes down to budget. You can do a little SEO, or you can do a lot. You can write 2 pages a month, or you can write 12 pages a month, right? You write 2 pages a month, it's going to take a lot longer to catch the competition. In some cases, you're never going to catch them. And that is where a lot of people go wrong with SEO. I can't tell you how many people I talk to that are spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month on SEO, which seems to be like the number that any bad SEO company can convince someone who doesn't know about SEO to spend $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Because the people I speak to that are unhappy have been spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month on SEO, getting 1-2 pages a month written for them, and then you look at who's dominating in their space, and they're pumping out 4 pages a week. You're trying to do 2 pages a month, and they're doing 16 pages a month.
You're never going to catch them.
You're never going to catch them.
Super interesting. Yeah. It's tough to have that conversation. I imagine, like, the client doesn't want to hear that, right? We're not going to get, but sometimes you need to set real expectations for people. And
I just try to tell people I'm not trying to have you as a client for 6 months. I'm trying to have you as a client for 6 years, so if I'm going to do my best to tell you what we can achieve over the next 6 months, and show you the progress, and hopefully show you enough progress and prove to you that we know what we're doing, that you keep going with us after that. And 95% of our customers over the 9 years we've been in business have done that. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. Not everyone signs up when they hear that, not a lot of people can afford to invest in something for 6 months with no ROI. But, even in those cases, there's always longer tail terms or less competitive terms. It's again about taking that conversation a little deeper. Hey, you want to rank for car accident attorney in New York City? So does everyone else, right? But maybe you do construction accident, or ladder accidents, where search volume's not very high. Not every PI firm does that, but someone falls off a ladder in New York City, could be a $4 million case.
Yeah. First of all, Jordan, I appreciate you walking through how you think about everything from sales to hiring to niching. I have one last question. Before I ask it, I just want to point people, they can learn more at neonambition.com, and they can see, your most valuable team member, Walter White, on there, the dog from Breaking Bad. But last question is on resources. I'd love to hear any other books, podcasts, or resources for any, founder, CEO, entrepreneur, or agency owner. I know you mentioned the book Who. Are there any other books or podcasts or just resources that you look at, that you've looked at through your journey?
Yeah, I mean, Who is a big one. I keep that on my desk. It pretty much lives on my desk. And I mentioned the Agency Management Institute earlier. Drew does have a podcast. I cannot remember the name of it right now. I'm so sorry, Drew. But if you go to agencymanagementinstitute.com, I'm sure there's a link to his podcast there. If you're an agency owner, it's invaluable. Other books besides that, I'm trying to look at my bookshelf. Kind of got books all over the place. I mean, Scaling Up is another one, that I really like. It's based off the Rockefeller principles, written by a guy named Vern Harnish.
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of good information in there about
That's a great one.
Meeting schedules.
Yeah. He's been on the podcast, so people can check out that episode that we did. But yeah, great book, Scaling Up. Love it. Well, Jordan, I'm going to the first one to thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks
Jordan.
For having me, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.